Dr. Moshe Yaakov Vardi is a renowned computer scientist and mathematician. He's university professor and Karen Ostrom George Distinguished Service Professor in Computational Engineering at Rice University, as well as a fellow at the Baker Institute. He speaks with a very strong Israeli accent, so please sit down and pay attention. Adjust your hearing aids. I'm sorry I had to say that, but we have a few of you in the room. So he has authored and co-authored over 700 technical papers, as well as editing several collections. He's also authored the books Reasoning About Knowledge with Ronald Fagan, Joseph Halpin, and Yoram Moses, and Finite Model Theory and its Applications with Eric Ray. This is a long one. I promise it's in your pamphlets, but I mean, he is amazing.
Thank you very much for the introduction.
Golden Prize he's like a modern day Einstein. Okay, here he is. Let's give him a hand.
So we heard in the morning, Susanna put the Holocaust in context. We heard very moving, amazingly moving, deeply moving stories from Holocaust survivors. I'm a second generation survivor. That's a whole other story. But today I want to take us to the present. What's happening right now, and especially my perspective, what's happening on US campuses. Somehow seems to be the fulcrum of the phenomenon. Okay. So, I woke up on October 7 and October 8, and I realized that we are living in a make-believe world. Two illusions blew up in our face. The first one was the perception was widely shared in Israel, and therefore we all bought that story, that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was manageable. I mean, here is from 2021. We strike targeting rockets and tunnels. Israel attack of more in the grass returns to Gaza. Once in a while they shoot some rockets, we bomb them, okay, peace, ceasefire, life goes on. Well, that illusion blew up in our face big time, but we had another illusion. We knew that anti-Semitism is still around, but we thought it was in the margins. You know, the extreme right, you may remember, this is this I think 2017 in North Carolina. You shall not replace us, things like that. And the extreme left, we didn't realize how central anti-Semitism is still resonant with us. So the first illusion blew up on October 7. This is what happened. This is the supernova concert. We woke up when we heard the news, you know, utterly shocked. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not manageable. Okay? Oh. But the second one was October 8, a declaration at Harvard signed by 35 student organizations with under sanctioned organization hold the Israeli regime entirely responsible for the unfolding violence. And I have to say, I'm still wondering, how did they organize 35 student organizations to sign a petition in one day? I have to say, I have a hard time swallowing that they were just very efficient. But the reality is we should have seen it coming. We just lived in illusion. And here is just one example. Again, just 3 weeks before October 7, Rice Pride in partnership with Houston Hillel. And it's biting because Hillel was very supportive of Pride. And now Pride, the Rice Pride says, you have a relationship with Israel, therefore we don't want to work with you anymore. Wow. Again, the proximity is coincidence? I don't know. And after October 7, it's become, 83% by February of this year, 83% of Jewish students have experienced anti-Semitism on campuses. Let's talk about rice. Three weeks after October 7, there is a Rice University faculty petition of statement of solidarity with the Palestinians. 3 weeks after that, 1,100 words. So I said, okay, I'm going to read it to see what are they saying about October 7. 11 words. 11 words out of the whole petition about October 7.
Wow.
Hostages, not even mentioned. Not even mentioned. Okay? 3 weeks after October 7. How do you refer? They're not even saying Israel. They use the phrase it comes from Arab media. The Israeli Zionist state, is a legitimizing expression. They don't say even the state of Israel. It's a state of Israel. It's a state. The state of Israel. To my shock, when I look who signed it, I find several members of Rice Office of DEI. Okay? Rice Office of DEI, several members are signatory to the petition. Now you have to understand, these are, if they are working for universities, they're not just faculty member, okay, I may disagree with them, but they have a right to express their opinion. These are Rice University's employees, officer of the university. And then the Student Association, about a month and a half later, passed a resolution. SA stands for Student Association. This is Rice University Student Association. They passed a resolution affirming support of the faculty statement of solidarity with the Palestinians. They're not even mentioning October 7 in their resolution. And they're calling for Rice president to affirm its commitment to culture of care of our Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim student body, faculty, staff, and community. Jewish students don't even exist. I have to say that, even more than the previous one, pushed me over the edge. And I wrote my first article. I started speaking up on this issue. It was titled, A Moral Rot at Rice University. It went viral. I'm a second-generation Holocaust survivor. I recognize anti-Semitism when I see it. You do not need to be a user of derogatory epithet to be anti-Semitic. Using double standards qualify. It is okay to criticize Israel. Not okay to pay lip service to Palestinian atrocity. It is okay to call for ceasefire. Not okay to ignore the hostages. It is okay to call for a two-state solution, which I strongly support, to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It is not okay to talk about Palestinian liberation while mentioning the 1948 Nakba, implicitly suggesting ethnic cleansing of Jews in Israel. Not okay. This is anti-Semitism, plain and simple. I think I have a conversation with a colleague in late October, and that to me put it all in a nutshell. One simple exchange. Colleague, I'm very upset about what's happening in Gaza. And I said, it is a tragedy. I mean, nobody can deny the human tragedy unfolding in Gaza. I said, but I don't remember you being upset about the Battle of Mosul. I said, Mosul? What happened at Mosul? I said, 2016, not that long ago, ISIS dug itself into Mosul. The Iraqi army, with the help of the US and the UK, fought a year to get Mosul to get ISIS out of Mosul. Mosul completely destroyed, tens of thousands of civilian casualties. Nobody said anything. So he told me the following: when Arab kills Arab, we're not upset because of low expectation of them, but we have high expectation of Jews. So this is both anti-Semitic and anti-Arab in one sentence, because he's saying we really don't care about Arab per se unless the Jews are doing the killing. Then we are upset. But if they just kill each other, oh well, they're Arabs. Both anti-Semitic in the full sense, anti-Jewish and anti-Arab. So I'm watching all over this and ask myself, how did these elite universities, including Rice universities, how did this moral rot happen? Where does it come from? Farid Zakaria, a well-known commentator on CNN, asked, how did America's elite university go from being the kind of asset the world looks at with admiration and envy just 8 years ago to becoming objects of ridicule today? How did it happen? And I'll try to, to tell you a story now, a narrative, and I'm trying to make sense of the world. You can tell me later if it resonates with you or not. It's very hard to prove direct causality in history. We cannot run experiments. But this is the way I'm trying to make sense of what happened. Now, many other people have tried to understand what's going on, and they talk about the mentality that have become very common in the progressive cycles in higher education, and it's called the oppressor-oppressed mentality. Looks at the world in a very simplistic way. There are oppressors, they are bad, and they are oppressed, and they are good. And in fact, even what they do depends. For example, we had the Black Lives Matters movement. Now, black men were killed very tragically, very horribly. We should all be shocked by what we saw. Protest, yes, but that went into looting. And people say, oh, well, it's different because they are oppressed. No, looting is not okay. We should have said, protest, peaceful protest, yes. Looting, not okay. That's an example. And so what happened is you had suddenly we're all white. After we were not Aryan enough, okay, where Holocaust happened because we are not white enough for German. Suddenly we're all white. We are white oppressors. And we even have space lasers. I have an app on my phone. Come to me later. This is where I control the Jewish space lasers. So you take the new thing, identity politics. You marry it with classical anti-Semitism, where Jews somehow have this powerful cabal that are running the world, and suddenly we are the oppressors, and therefore the Palestinians are the oppressed, so they deserve all the sympathy, and Jews deserve none. Suddenly, very, very simplistic picture. But facts don't seem to matter. The reality is, you go to Israel, it doesn't look like a white country. The majority of the population is Middle Eastern. They are brown. Okay, they are brown. That's the majority. We think all Jews are rich, so I went and checked. The poverty rate among Jews is about the same as the general population. Now, of course, the rich Jews are much more visible than the poor Jews, but so is the case for any group of people. The rich are more visible. The Jews are a tiny fraction, less than 3% of U.S. population. 60% of all religion-based hate crime are targeted at Jews. All this doesn't seem to matter, the people who think of us as powerful oppressors. Now, there is a huge debate about anti-Semitism. Is anti-Zionism? It's not only anti-Zionism, it's not anti-Semitism. So here, let's see some chants from an encampment at Rise. It says, Zionists get out, free Palestine. So who are the Zionists that should get out? Are these people who believe in the ideology of Zionism? Do you think the ultra-Orthodox, the Neturei Karta in Israel, that are declare themselves to be anti-Zionists because they're waiting for the Messiah, are they exempt? They can stay? No. This says Israeli Jews. Okay? And then from the river to the sea, from the river to the sea, Palestine is free. It says all of the euphemism. The real chant, which was chanted on the Rice campus, is from the river to the sea, Palestine is Arab. So they're trying to tell us we're not anti-Semitic, we're only anti-Zionist. It's a splitting hair. They are talking about getting all the Jews out of Israel. They're calling for ethnic cleansing here. Okay? And there was another chant there. I don't know if it's here. And it says, on the Rice campus, they chanted, Zionists are not welcome here. So on the Rice campus, I'm not welcome on part of the Rice campus. And what's the reaction from the president? Oh, a free expression of opinions. Imagine somebody on the Rice campus would have said, blacks are not welcome here. Hispanics are not welcome here. There will be an uproar. There will be national news. Zionists are not welcome here? Oh, well. So let's go back to identity politics, because that's a very modern phenomenon. Think about it. In fact, Wikipedia tells us, late 20th century, where did identity politics comes from? How did it become such a huge part of our lives? They start with identity politics, focusing on ethnicity, race, nationality, religion, gender, sexual orientation, etc. So let's go back to what used to be left and right. No, I'm going in the wrong direction, sorry. One more. Go back. Okay, left and right. Left and right, where does it come from? It goes back to the French National Assembly. The right, the monarchist was sitting on the right, and the anti-monarchist was sitting on the left. And so generally it became that the right supports the people in power, and the left are for the people who are disempowered. That's the kind of the thing that you think about. And if you look at the United States, 20th century, Republicans were for Democrats and Republicans, 19th century is different. But 20th century, the Democrats gave us the New Deal, and the Republicans were the pro-business party. This was traditionally kind of, Democrats care about the working class people, Republicans care about the business community. That was the traditional division. Next. But then, 1981, Ronald Reagan became president, just before I came to the United States, so I'm not responsible for that. And the 1970s were a bad decade economically, because kind of economists look at it to say the combination of explosion of spending on the Vietnam War caused inflation, and then the oil embargo increased inflation. So if you're old enough, you remember stagflation of the 70s. And so Ronald Reagan had to do two things. They have to tame inflation and still kind of open the economy. And Ronald Reagan advocated what became known as neoliberalism, or laissez-faire economics, which is economic liberalization, reduction in spending, privatization, deregulation, monetarism, tax reduction, globalization, free trade, huge amount of defense spending. That was the one place where the government spent. Soviet Union fell apart. Many people credit neoliberalism. That's debatable. Okay, some people say Gorbachev deserves more credit than Reagan, but that's a whole other topic. Well, the similar phenomenon happened in the UK with Thatcher, and the left in both countries felt that they have to move to the center. They have to move to the center. So here we had the New Democrats. Bill Clinton led the New Democrats. In fact, I asked people who said the era of big government is over. And most people think it must be Ronald Reagan. It was actually Bill Clinton, second inaugural address. Okay, amazing. US-China trade agreement, Clinton. NAFTA, Clinton. All of these are kind of, again, part of neoliberalism. Free trade, all of these. Similar phenomenon happened in the UK with New Labour. Okay? Tony Blair and New Labour. In fact, in 2002, after she left office for more than a decade, there was an interview with Margaret Thatcher. She asked, what is your greatest achievement? She said, New Labour. The fact that she was able to move Labour to the center, she took that as her biggest victory. Now, for the economy as a whole, we did have an economic boom. However, for working class people, it didn't work very well. And this is an article from 2016, Foreign Affairs. A stunning U-turn in the fortune of poor and working class whites began in 1970 as deindustrialization, automation, globalization, and the growth of high technology and service sector transformed the US economy. If you look for that period, for example, one of the things you see even for especially white working class people, life expectancy goes down because of the opioid epidemic, which mostly affected working class people. People call it disease of despair. I can spend a whole hour talking about the economic picture, the grim economic picture, which were the more educated professionals who lived in our own bubble. The economy was good for us. We didn't see what was happening in rural and working class America. If you want to see where MAGA people come, they come from this. Now, who's supposed to care about working class people? Right? The left, the Democrats. But Democrats moved to the right. The Democrats became the yuppie party, the party of educated professionals. A book in 2022, Left Behind, which is a very clever pun, how the left left the working class people behind. So the left here is in two meaning. Michael Powell, another article, 2024, the more Democratic Party and liberalism itself is to a substantial extent a bastion of college-educated upper middle-class professionals. That's what happened. Remember, Hillary Clinton took a basket of deplorable. If she say their condition is deplorable, that's empathy. A basket of deplorable is a term of derision, of contempt. When she said that, I said, she's going to lose. A basket of deplorable is a term of contempt. Now the Democrats are doing soul searching. We will see what will happen. Now after the losing the last election, lots of soul searching. We will see what happens. Now at the same time, starting from after World War II, there was a realization that our society has been very unequal. Many groups have been marginalized, okay? I mean, remember, World War II, we talk about the Liberator, the US military was segregated in World War II. Only in 1948 was desegregated. Then we have the Civil Rights Act, 1964, the Equal Rights Amendment for women. Congress passed it in 72. Then we've been fully, what's the word, confirmed or
implemented.
Ratified by enough states. Roe v. Wade, which we lost, was 1973. Don't ask, don't tell about the military, gays in the military. All of this, we had a bunch of things, all the way to even in 2010, remember, violence by police force against black men in particular. All of the things, there was a realization that as a society, we could do better. We could be a more inclusive society. Everybody should get full rights. And so the following happened. On one hand, we are ignoring working class people, in particular white working class people, and suddenly we are recognizing oppression against other people. This all happened at the same time. So to be progressive, suddenly we don't care about working class people, but we care about whether trans people can participate in the sport of their choice. That suddenly became the main thing. And these people, Thomas Piketty is an economist, I would say is on the left side. He wrote a lot about inequality. Susan Eman is a philosopher, again, on the left side. Piketty wrote, when people are told there's no credible alternative to the socio-economic organization and class inequality that exists today, it's not surprising they invest their hope in defending their borders identities instead. Susan Neiman, it begins with a concern for marginalized person and end up by reducing it to a prism of her marginalization. The only thing that counts is what exactly identity you are. Instead of talking about general shared prosperity, but an inclusive society. Everybody here was saying, yes, we should have shared, not equality, it's never possible to have equality, but we should all strive for shared prosperity, for inclusive society. But it became very narrowly defined. Now this attitude, this sudden focus on what we call some people call the woke culture, ignoring economic issues but focusing on other issues, also came to the university. But it part of this neoliberalism overall was a philosophy that says market know best. We should leave everything to markets. And that also affected universities. Universities have also become the place where, universities they have their own marketplace. Now you have to understand, you think of university as professors, but if you look at Rice University, what is really, by law, what is Rice University? It's the board of trustees. They are the corporation. We are employees, the students are consumers. Legally, Rice University is the board of trustees. That's the corporation. In fact, at Harvard, what we call the board, at Harvard we call the corporation. Because legally, that is the university. It's a non-profit organization. There are no shareholders. The board is the corporation. And who sits on the board? rich alums. They're coming from the business world. And they know very often they're alums, they were students, they don't fully understand how university works, but they bring the attitude that they've absorbed in the business world. They said university should run like businesses. No, they're not businesses. They should not be run like businesses. So let's go back. What are universities about? What is the purpose of university? There was a very influential statement in 1940 by the American Association of University professor, AAUP, justifying economic freedom, academic freedom. Now, why should professors have more freedom than, when I was at IBM, nobody said we have freedom of expression inside IBM. We were employees of IBM. Why am I entitled to more freedom when I work for the university? So we have to go back. What is the basic mission of the university? So ICE is private, but they're saying it doesn't matter. All institutions of higher education should be dedicated to the common good. That's what we are there. We are dedicated, we should be dedicated. That's why we're non-profit, because we should be dedicated to the common good. In fact, Reich's mission statement says, groundbreaking research and unstructured education for the betterment of the world. That is the purpose. Tikkun olam. We should all understand what it is about. How? Tikkun olam means, well, it's a whole other talk I can give in Tikkun olam, but making the world a better place. Betterment of the world is a translation of Tikkun olam. But you come to RISE, you hear very little talk about betterment of the world. You hear about how much money we bring for research and what kind of ranking we have. We pursue money and prestige. Why? Because it's a marketplace of university. We compete for money make the world go around, and we compete for prestige. Already a colleague of mine, a professor of computer science at Harvard, almost 20 years ago wrote a book about Harvard, Excellence Without a Soul. Does liberal education have a future? So what happened is elite universities have become elitist universities. Elitist universities. For example, New York Times, just about 2 years ago. Why does Duke have so few low-income students? This same thing you can write, it was about Duke. You can write about Rice. So people think it's because we're expensive. But we really have very, very generous financial aid package. So why we have very few low-income students? Because the Rice has become so competitive to be admitted to Rice. As soon as your child is born, you have to say, I want this child to go to an elite university. And you have to spend the next 18 years investing in their education, making sure they go to the right kindergarten, they get the right tutors, to do the right enrichment activities. Otherwise, they will have no chance of getting admitted. To be admitted, you need parents who understand the system and made the decision from age 0 to prepare the child for this kind of education. So working class families, rural family, they don't have the know-how. They have no chance in this competition. So you have the following paradox of higher education. You go and you talk to the professor. Professors tend to be more on the liberal side. Not because in computer science, whenever interview, we don't ask any political question. But because the people who decided to go to teach in academia, I could have, about 15 years ago, I had a little conversation with Microsoft about starting a research lab in Israel. And that was some attraction to me. And I was interested to know what would it mean financially. So they didn't make me an offer. We didn't get to that stage. But I called some friends. What would it mean? And they says, well, and they give me numbers. And before that, I told my wife, I bet I can double my salary. I was naive. It was quintupling my salary. And I had to decide, no, I like the academic environment. That's more important to me than making more money. My house is paid for. We have 2 cars. We are okay. We don't need more money. Okay? But that attract people who are not for the money. So it attract people more on the left. The students come from such families, tend to be on the left. However, we find us a very non-diverse campuses economically, and little discussion about the common good and societal responsibility. And how do we live on our endowment? 1/3 of the endowment is invested in private equity. Private equity there's a book about private equity, Plunder. Private equity plan to pillage America. But we don't talk about it. So there is paradoxes at the very foundation of elite universities. So instead, we found a religion to feel morally virtuous, and the religion has become DEI. And the point is not to say diversity is not important. It cannot be the only moral virtue. If it's part of contribution to the common good, and we discuss it, yeah, that should be one of the aspects. But it has become the only thing that we talked about. So Rice has an office DEI, has been renamed since. What about Office for Betterment of the World, which is our mission statement? Nada. Okay? Rice, the only required course for all Rice students, analyzing diversity. If you apply to a faculty position at Rice, you have to write a statement about a diversity statement. Nobody is going to write, everybody knows what it is about. Nobody will write, I don't believe in diversity. Everybody knows what is a religion. This is what we call, it's really a pledge, ideological pledge of allegiance. People have publicly dared to challenge DEI. Now it's more open. Such people have been cancelled. You don't believe in DEI? Sorry, you don't get to speak here. This is an actual course at Rice. Afrochemistry. Afrochemistry. The study, but it's the study of Black Lives Matter, but it's in the chemistry department. Okay. This is I have said this is surreal. I was shocked about this when I discovered that. Now, when anti-Semitism started exploding to rise after October 7, our office DEI was at the center of this. The associate vice provost for DEI on this campus will ask you to engage in civic disobedience. She's an officer of Rice University. She is encouraging students to violate university rules. October 18, noted the date, October 18, a vigil in the Multicultural Center Quarter, which is part of Office DI, honoring our Palestinian martyrs. Okay? May 2024, a huge pro-BDS poster in front of the MCC. Could not have been there without their approval. So no wonder that David Brooks wrote already in November 23, universities are failing inclusion. Inclusion does not include Jews. Include everyone, but they don't say, oh, we have to do something about our Jewish student. No. And part of it, we have to say that part of what happened to parts of you don't see it in engineering and science, but when you go to the humanities, you see that there somehow scholarship has been replaced by ideologies. Okay, so already we saw in 2022, the Middle East Studies Association passed a resolution in 2022 calling for boycotting BDS against Israel. Okay, this was even before October 7. And so much of the conversation there has become about social justice, not studying these issues, this is what universities should do, but advocating for this. So, a faculty member, this is from the webpage of faculty member in the new school in New York. My work draws on, this is real, for real, this I copied from her webpage, okay? My work draws on feminist and queer theory to examine ecology, materiality, and contemporary art in the context of settler colonialism. It means nothing. This is let's put all the buzzword in one sentence. That's what it means. How many buzzwords can I put in a sentence? Okay, the competition. Now this is an actual. This is on Blue Sky. This is the date is October 7. Not it. The date is October 7. This is a faculty member at Yale. The names, I'm not putting, she puts it there. Blue Sky. My heart is in my throat. Prayer for Palestinian. Israeli is a murderous, a genocidal settler state, and Palestinians have a right to resist through armed struggle, solidarity. The response to the October 7 is solidarity. So this is what I call kind of academic bankruptcy, intellectual bankruptcy. So, what do we do? So we have to start by looking. Yes, we don't want to go back. You go back to Rice until you have to realize, until the 1950s, Rice admitted only white men. Okay, why? Because Mr. Rice, when he left the money, he said the purpose of the university, he established the endowment for Rice University, was to educate the I don't know if he wrote white, but obviously when he wrote it, which was in the beginning of the century, it was only for white, to educate the men of Texas, okay? Only much later we admitted women, and blacks were admitted only after the civil rights legislation. I mean, you have to remember, Houston was part of the South. We had Jim Crow laws here until the civil rights legislation. None of us wants to go back to that. Diversity is important, but again, it cannot be the only thing. And people are realizing, again, they call it DEI 2.0. We need to go back and look and what should diversity mean. And in particular, we cannot ignore the biggest gap that we have, which is lack of economic diversity on campuses. But again, DEI cannot be the only thing. It has to be, we have to go back to support the common good. Now, what is the common good? Well, on that, we're going to debate. Your opinion and your opinion might be different. Let's start the debate. For example, educating students, yeah, I think it's support the common good. But if I look at how we're educating them, my son was a Rice student. Before I followed him to Rice. So we talked about it. I've talked to many alum. There is implicit measure the Rice students get. One, you're very smart. It's true. Rice is so selective. All the students are very, very good. Two, you're getting great education. It's true. Rice does give them great education. Three, go have a great career. Sure. Four, don't forget about us. We want, because we live at the generosity of our students. Nobody's telling them, you're very smart, you got great education, go have a great career, make the world a better place, and don't forget about us. This idea that the elite student here, they're the leaders of tomorrow. They cannot just think about their career. This idea that came from neoliberalism, that each one of us can be selfish, and somehow the world is going to be better, we all know this is a crazy idea. Right. If you have friends and they are totally selfish, you don't want them as friends. If we as a society don't say, yes, I want to do well, but I want to see a good society. I want to see shared prosperity. I want to see inclusiveness. If we don't educate the students, that this is, to me, it's a Jewish value. Remember the story. A Gentile goes to Hillel and tell me the whole Torah while I'm sitting on one leg. And what does he tell him? What's hated to you, don't do it to your friend. Okay? Empathy and sympathy with other people. Without it, it's a jungle. It's not a society. And I want to finish because we are all responsible for this. We talked about what neoliberalism did to our society. Look at this. This is share of income going back to 1962, and you see the change started around 1980. So the top 1% used to earn about 13% of the income. Okay, these are the rich people. But that has gone up to 20%. And the bottom 50% used to earn about 20% of the income. And that has gone down to 12%. We've become a more and more unequal society. And history tells us when a society becomes so unequal, it's bad for everybody. At the end of the day, it's bad for the rich people too. Ask Louis XIV, okay? Look at what happened in other countries. People need to have a sense, okay, they know that they are not going to be doing as well as the rich people. But to have a sense that they are sharing the prosperity. When we lose that, we get very polarized society, which is society we live today. We can talk a lot about AI and social media and what other things are enhancing polarization. But this is where it starts, and that's on all of us. Thank you very much. You are the time master, so you know how much time.
See if they have questions. Let me check and see my timer. No, my list here. I'm sure you're gonna have a few questions, but where's my paper, babe? That I have that written. Sorry. Here it is.
My email address is very simple. Vardi, my last name, Vardi @rice.edu. feel free to follow up with me by email. Vardi, right here, it's Vardi. But you don't even need a CS. Vardi at rice.edu. Yeah, this is my email address. But this works as well, okay? I'll welcome email with comments and people who want to get more information. It's all welcome.
Wow. That was amazing. I think we're going to hold, because I think the kind of questions that we would be asking you are, how about we have 2 questions? Because I'm sorry, we have to ask a question or 2 here. If you dare, do it. What did you say? What did you get an A on?
How do you get?
How do you get an A in opera chemistry?
It's a syllabus for
Yes. What is that?
It's just a bizarre course. I mean, I have to say, it's a bizarre course. I mean, I actually I read about it first in the Wall Street Journal, and I said this cannot be. So I go and open the RISE website for courses, and there it was. I mean, I just had to print screen and save it I don't know, maybe it's gone by now. But it was a real course. When I saw it, I just couldn't believe it. If they want to talk about a course in sociology about oppression of blacks, oh yeah, by all means, we know it's there. But Afrochemistry,
Are you a lone island out there at Rice University, Dr. Vardi? Do the professors part the waves when you walk, or what?
so unfortunately, the university is now kind of somewhat split between engineering and science, where we really focus on scholarship. Okay, nobody gets hired at Rice for engineering or science on anything, and nobody asked them any question about politics. Okay, when I published, where I saw the split was when I published the very first article, a Moral wrote at Rice University. I got lots of emails from support from colleagues in engineering and science, and I would say borderline anti-Semitic email from the other side of the campus. So unfortunately, something bad happened, especially in the humanities, where you may have heard postmodernism, postcolonialism, all kind of strange theory have become in vogue. And even there, some people tell me, that people inside, I do have friends in humanities, and they bemoan what has happened to the humanities. Yeah. Here, second question, Frank.
Do the monies that come into Rice University come mainly from former students? And the question I'm asking is because I understand that the country of Qatar is one of the largest donors to universities. Does that also affect Rice?
So all universities have to disclose kind of foreign gifts, and I found a website, some government website where they are disclosed. Rice receives some money from Qatar, but there are not huge amount of money. In case of Rice, I would say that there are also some strange amount of money from all kind of islands, low tax jurisdictions. So there are other things that one may wonder. But if you look at the whole university and the amount of money we get, I don't think it's right. Qatar may be dominant in some other places, but for us, the amount is not significant enough. For example, let's suppose I saw a gift like $1 million. $1 million sounds a lot of money to you and me, but for a university with a budget of $1 billion a year, it's not a lot of money. Okay?
Excuse me, but it's done through portals. It's okay. It's done through portals. It's not Qatar directly will never be getting it. There's in France, there's a commission now that went in, that spoke. There was a journalist that went undercover, and that journalist was part of the movement with the Palestine organizations. They started getting funding. All these small organizations were getting funding.
And then moving the money.
And then
Yeah.
moving the money.
So
This
look,
was going on, and they found the source.
you could be right. So Rice, like many other elite universities, is private. Okay? That means they don't have to publish everything. Okay, they have to abide by the law. There are few financial documents that they have to publish. Okay, there is, for example, something called IRS 990, which is something they have to file with IRS, and it's a public document. They have to publish their annual statements. It's public, and they have to disclose explicit foreign gifts. But if it goes through, if Qatar gave it to, for example, to another American charity, and then, for example, there is, the Muslim American Council, okay, and then it comes to rice, then we don't know, and rice is very, very tight about information is power, and it's impossible to get information about this.
But this is part of a bigger agenda. This is happening in all the universities. This is a small thing, window opening to a bigger agenda.
So the only body can uncover this will be if the government decides to really go into study this in depth. Okay, nobody private. I don't have the power.
This is what's being done.
That's being done. Well, I welcome that. Okay, I welcome that. Yeah.
We really have more people. Can we give him another hand right now? Okay.